This is Rose here, and I am creating a video to help sort of walk you through Vectorworks, A, as a review, and B, to clarify some things that I think were confusing you from the previous videos by our lovely British instructor. So, to start off, let's go ahead and open Vectorworks, and we'll just open a new document. I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to use a shortcut, but whatever system you're on, go ahead and get to Vectorworks. Alright, so when it first loads, you're going to see something like this. This is a very basic document, and I see here, if you look at the top, right up here, that this document is about 8 inches, and I'm going to guess 11, probably 10.5. This is just your standard sheet of letter size paper, and for our purposes, this is not terribly useful. So one of the first things we're going to want to do when starting a new document is to change the document size. To change the document size, in the Vectorworks screen, you're going to go to File, Page Setup. Now, for those of you who have been with me during hangs and focuses, you'll notice that the size of the plot is actually rather substantial. It's 2 feet by 3 feet. This is a standard size of paper, and it's called US Arch D. You can find this by going over to the printable area, which you see right here, and you'll click this box, Choose Size Unavailable in Printer Setup. When you do that, this drop-down no longer is grayed out, and you can select, if you scroll down, US Arch D. Click this, and you will see that this is changed to 36 inches by 24 inches. That's what we want. This is sort of industry standard for a light plot. Something else you may have noticed when you created this document is that once you hit the OK button, you get all this weird wording in the background of your page. It's very simple to remove. Over here on your Pages section, make sure that only Show Page Boundary is selected. The Show Page Breaks and Show Watermarks should be deselected. If you don't, I'm going to check these as an example, and hit OK, you'll see what happens. Right now it's zoomed us in, so we can go ahead and take ourselves down here at the top. And here's 75%. For those of you with mice, your scroll wheel will scroll you in and out. But for anyone, you can see that with those 2 boxes checked, we now have sort of an odd looking thing. We have these weird gray rectangles and stuff that says Vectorworks Educational Version. Now, if we go to the File menu, Page Setup, and we uncheck these 2 boxes, you'll see that we get a much cleaner document. I'm going to scroll back out because we're scrolled really far in. And now you can see I just have a very basic rectangle. To navigate around this rectangle in a very quick and easy fashion, I'm going to hit the spacebar. Watch what happens when I do so. My icon changes from the little arrow to a hand. The hand allows me to click and drag and move this sucker around without any problem. I'm going to zoom in. Now I'm at 50%. This is a rather large document at the moment, and the reason for that is that we have not set our document's scale. To do this, we're going to go up here at the top to your contextual menu, and we're going to change scale. Right off the bat, for whatever reason, Vectorworks has decided that it's going to hide the scale icon. You notice that there's nothing here that can change that for you. However, if you go all the way over here, there's a little arrow. Click that arrow and find your layer scale. Once that's checked, you'll notice that you have a little ruler here with a 1:1 ratio. To fit Ethington in this plot, we're going to want to change the scale. And we're wanting to change it to 3/8 inch. This means that on your scale, on your plot rather, 3/8 of an inch on your plot equals 1 foot in real life. Check that, hit OK. Again, I'm just using my spacebar to drag around and sort of look at my document. Now that we have our document set up in such a fashion so as to have all of the right settings, the right page size, and the right scale, we need to start adding things to this document. To start off, we worked with some simple drawing tools. One of the most common is just your rectangle tool. You should have a basics palette. It says basic right here if you follow my mouse. And if you don't, it's really easy to get a hold of. To get the Basics palette, just go to Window, Palettes, Basic. Alright, so now that you have the basic toolset, there are a couple tools that are of absolute importance. I already discussed the hand tool, or the pan tool as they call it, and you'll notice here if I hover over any tool long enough, it gives me a little description. So this one says the pan tool, and then in parentheses it says H. The H is your keyboard shortcut. In this case, H means that you would hit H, and your cursor becomes the hand tool. But it always becomes the hand tool, and we don't really want that. More often than not, the tool you're going to use more than anything else is your selection tool, parentheses X. So if you hit X, your cursor turns to a little arrow. And this is great. This is what lets us select things, this is what lets us modify things, move things around. It's fantastic. We'll use this most of all. But occasionally, we'll want to use other things. Last week, we went over drawing some fairly basic shapes. These are things that I personally have used in plots, maybe drawing in some scenic elements, adding in an electric that wasn't in my plot, anything like that. These tools can help you. So let's begin. To review, let's go ahead and draw a rectangle. That's this guy right here. And if you click it, you suddenly get this little tiny cross. To draw a rectangle, you have several options. You can either just draw out and hope that you get it right, or as you're drawing, you can hit Tab. Notice when I hit Tab, suddenly the change in X gets highlighted. This is telling me how wide I would like this to be. So for this example, let's have this be 8 feet. If I hit Tab again, there's my Y. How tall do I want this to be? Well, I'd like this to be 16 feet. If I hit Enter, I've drawn myself a rectangle. Alright, so we've drawn our rectangle, and now it's up here, sort of awkwardly so. Having my little arrow tool, again keyboard shortcut of X, I can click on that, and I can drag it down onto my screen. Remember, this gray border here is the border of your page, so you want to make sure that you don't have stuff sort of hanging off of it, otherwise when you print, you won't print everything. Alright, so I've drawn this rectangle. Alright, so we have one rectangle, and we've drawn it to the size we'd like, in this case 8 feet by 16 feet. So what happens if you want to draw another rectangle just like it? Well, you can always go back to your rectangle tool, and then draw it out and hit Tab several times, type it in, but that gets to be a bit time-consuming, particularly if, say, you need 15 of these rectangles. So what's an easier way? Well, there is a built-in method in Vectorworks of quickly duplicating objects you already have on your piece of paper. So, to begin, you'll need to make sure you're on your arrow tool, so you either click up here, or you go ahead and click X, and then hover over your box. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hit Option or Alt, depending on whether you're on a PC or a Mac, and when you do that, you get a little plus. So if you look at my cursor right here, you notice, okay, I'm hitting Option on my Mac right now, and I get a little plus by my cursor. What that means is that when I click and drag, instead of moving the object, I've duplicated it. Well, that's all fine and good, but what happens if you also need this to be aligned? Well, if you need this to be aligned, there's this delightful thing called snapping. And that's over here. This is your snapping palette. If you don't have it, you can go Window, Palettes, Snapping. And what this does is it's a quick and easy way to align things. So you can see I have two rectangles here, but they're not aligned. They're close, but they're not perfect. I would like this rectangle to match up perfectly with the bottom of this rectangle. To do that, I'm going to click on this rectangle, and then I'm going to click over here. You'll notice that my cursor now says top left. If I click that, I've grabbed that corner, and it will snap. You'll feel it if you do it right. When you move it, it'll be moving around pretty freeform, and then you get close to another object and snap. It's right next to that. So now you can see that these are perfectly next to each other. There's no space in between. They're not off kilter in any way, they're perfect. Snapping is delightful. I use it all the time. Alright, so now I have my 2 rectangles. Now let's say I need to make 2 more identical to them right next to each other. The nice thing about Vectorworks is that you can grab a group of objects and move them around. Make sure you're on your arrow tool, so X or go and click, and then up here in your context menu, click either this center icon or the one off to the right. This one, the very first one with the little like no icon, is going to drive you crazy, so just don't mess with it. So I personally like the third one. It has more options. And what you can do is you can click and drag and select both objects. So you notice that as I'm dragging, I have this little gray box, and they turn orange. If they have an orange outline, that means you've selected them. Something to note about this tool is that you have to select the entire object. So you notice if I start drawing and I've cut off that top a bit, and I draw down, it only selects that bottom one. Only the bottom one has the orange outline. So make sure that if you're going to do this, click and drag over the entire object. With that, you can see I have 2 objects selected. Once again, I'm going to hit my Option or Alt and drag it over. Now, one thing that's kind of useful is, since we're wanting this to be in the same plane, so the same row, is that as I'm dragging, and again I have my Option or Alt still held down, I can also hit Shift. And what this does is it locks it to very specific angles. This is useful if I'm just wanting to drag it along the same horizontal plane. If I let go of Shift, it can go all over the place. I hit Shift again, and it snaps it back. Hitting Shift, letting go of Shift. So I'm hitting Shift, and I'm going to move it as close to there as I can. I see that it's not perfectly aligned, so I grab my top left again, and I snap. Bam! We have 4 rectangles all in a nice row.